This is the Final Word Cricket Podcast with Adam Collins and Jeff Lemon, Maurice Blackburn Lawyers, who are our pals who have been there working on behalf of hardworking Australians since 1919. My country said some.
MBs. Adam, the bank, one of the main banks in Portugal is called Millennium Banco, and they have it's like a pay share transfer thing, which everybody uses here, called MB Way, where, you have dinner with someone and you send them the amount, you bump your phone and you do your MB Way. And every time I see it, I think the MB Way is the Maurice Blackburn way. It's about integrity. It's about sticking up for the little guy for over 100 years. It's about putting the finger up to big business. They're doing a big class action now against AMP. I got an email the other day saying, you had super with AMP years ago before I went to CBUS, and they stole it all by putting weird fees on it. And when I went back to look, there was no money in the account. I was like, that's odd. It wasn't great at the time, but apparently they did that to a lot of people. So now there's a big class action against them that Maurice Blackburn is running. It's good stuff.
It's the type of thing they do. Day-to-day super insurance, which told you a lot about. That's where, in simple terms, if you're no longer able to work due to injury or illness, it's Maurice Blackburn who will work on your behalf to make sure you get what you're entitled to. It's often a messy world, the legal system, especially when illness or injury is involved. So search Maurice Blackburn Lawyers or Maurice Blackburn Super Insurance, and you'll learn a lot more about them. Some of Australia's best lawyers, offices around the country, and of course, they're very present online. They've got a great TikTok channel as well, if you want to kind of get a sense of some of the stories of people who have worked with Maurice Blackburn. TikTok's not a bad. I know we don't live on there, Jeff, but I've had a look at their channel, and they're doing great work there talking with younger people. So we're proud to be in association with Maurice Blackburn Lawyers. We went a little bit longer on segment one than I anticipated, so we've got a fair bit to get through in segment two before we reach our county wrap. Let's start with Kagiso Rabada.
Hour of power. We used to have a segment called the lightning round.
The lightning round.
We're going to bang through 15 topics in 15 minutes.
I don't think any of these are kind of like 1 minute topics. We'll see. No. I might be wrong. Kagiso Rabada done for bags.
Yep, on the gear during the SA20, and failed a drug test in India, and then went home and was like, "I'm just going home for undisclosed reasons," and now a month later is back.
Can I just ask a threshold question?
Sure.
Did you know that players got done for this? Because obviously before I just didn't. I just took it as read that maybe this is obviously bad journalism on my part. But I remember the Doug Bracewell thing last year, but I thought that was like an internal sanction, like a New Zealand cricket thing. I didn't realize that there is architecture around this at the moment. And the 30-day ban of sorts, Rabada has sat out. He'll go back to the IPL now, so he's not going to miss the World Test Championship final. He put out a statement with the type of contrition you might expect from a man who's most articulate. Rabada always speaks well, and he's clearly very embarrassed by what's happened. So this all played out at the SA20. He started the IPL. We'll talk more about this with Ben Jones later. But I guess there's and this is back to a conversation you and I have had in the last 6 weeks on the show with the proliferation of cocaine in the community. It's only natural that a lot more athletes would be taking drugs than were before. That's just the nature of the beast. No one's saying that, that I'm not passing judgment on that. I'm simply saying that if there is more cocaine in the community, therefore there'll be more athletes taking cocaine. Therefore, there'll be presumably more positive tests, and maybe there are heaps of positive tests that we're not aware of. And there is a privacy component to this, of course. We're not entitled to find out every last bit of information around these things. Certainly in footy, the code of football that you and I grew up on, we wouldn't learn this information because there are strict privacy protocols around non-performance enhancing drugs, right? There's a 3-strike process.
For the first 2 strikes, but I think once the third one is, anyway, it comes out.
I just found that interesting. That's kind of quirky. I didn't kind of realize that there'd be a sanction like this for this at the moment.
It's a legacy arrangement. Basically, drugs policy really gets formulated through the 90s, after Sol 88 and all the rest of it. And that's still the height of war on drugs, propaganda, bullshit, where, remember the amount of kerfuffle about just trying to get a safe injecting room for heroin addicts over the line in Melbourne during that period of time. War on drugs was the orthodoxy.
Yep.
And I think by now it's much less the orthodoxy, particularly, say, cannabis is legal in half the American states and a bunch of Canada, and other drugs, particularly in Canada and British Columbia, are becoming easier to obtain, psilocybin and things like that. trials for psychedelic drugs. So there's a more nuanced kind of policy approach to recreational drugs. So they were just lumped in with everything else in the 90s as well. Obviously, you can't do these because they're bad, not because they're performance enhancing, but because they're immoral and illegal and a bad, bad model for kids and all the other stuff that they would spin at the time. These days, more people are more relaxed about recreational drugs being part of people's lives in one way or another. So if it's not performance enhancing, why should it be tested for at all? In the AFL, they run that duty of care argument that you mentioned there. But for an international cricketer playing in the IPL, well, why should it matter if he's doing a line of coke or not? You could argue that it's performance enhancing as a stimulant, I suppose, but that's only if you're doing it during a match, and even then, it's probably not. I can't imagine. I mean, I've gone out partying in a bunch of cities around the world, and I've seen a bunch of people on a bunch of bags, and I don't think any of them would be better at sport for it than they would have been had they not. Put it that way.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
there's no real advantage.
Yeah, and look, there's no point speculating about that. I don't think, because that would be beyond our pay grade. But yeah, what I just found it interesting is almost like a social study when. And this is not casting aspersions; it's just the reality. We know that athletes are members of the community as well, and cricketers are members of the community as well. So there'd be a lot of cricketers, therefore, who would be taking cocaine on a regular basis. I guess I just didn't quite clock that there could be these series of steps that would follow. And Rabada's fallen foul of that. So he will be back in the IPL and back for the World Test Championship, and he'll be embarrassed by it, as he said himself, but. Life will go on. Nat Sciver-Brunt is the New England captain. I had a chance to announce that at the very end of the show last week in classic final word fashion. The news broke as we were ending our recording in segment 3 there. So it was all quite low key, and I understand why they've taken these steps, because she's on maternity leave at the moment. Her and Catherine had baby Theodore in March, which was when Heather Knight was standing down, and Charlotte Edwards was stepping up into the job, and they wanted to sequence it so that Edwards was in position. And then I think it was probably 2 weeks after Lottie formally was given the job that they announced Nat Sciver-Brunt, but she's not doing media, right? They're going to wait until she's back from maternity leave, which precedes the series against the Windies and another one against India. So we can, and we should talk about Nat Sciver-Brunt's suitability to be the England captain, but I think to have forced a statement out the door when Heather only resigned 5 weeks ago, when Nat had far more important things on her mind, would have, added undue pressure. But now the decision's been made, we can reflect on, I suppose, look, immense record with the bat and with the ball for England, 259 games stretching back to 2013. She is qualified from a cricketing perspective to be the next captain. Hasn't got a great record in major tournaments with England when leading in Knight's absence. The Commonwealth Games of 2022 stand out on that front, and some times she's been handed it at other World Cups. I think last year in 2024 she had to do it briefly when Heather was injured as well, when they were bundled out in the group stage. So she is undoubtedly the conservative choice. How I interpret this, though, just to get to my actual point, this is because they don't have a 20-something option. If there was a player who was in that sort of 27 to 30 bracket who was crying out to be captain of that England team to implement some, I guess, generation change after the chastening experience in Australia, they would be captain. But there's not. And that's the problem. So they have to go to someone in the same generation as Knight, which Sciver-Brunt is, who will be, I guess, safe pair of hands as far as someone who's always going to be in the best 11, someone who won't be daunted by the experience. But I think it's worth providing that context. There was no credible candidate who was banging the door down to be captain, who met the perfect kind of age bracket that you would want after a long-term captain. Yeah,
it all feels a bit Healy with Australia, though, going to the same generation, and then just putting too much on their best player. I've talked about Sciver-Brunt carrying that side, and she has done really for a couple of years. Captaincy on top of that, maybe it'll be great. Maybe she'll flourish, but I see the potential downsides as being more significant than the upsides.
Yeah, and I hope it doesn't have an effect on a game. That's the other thing I wanted to say, that you don't want someone's wings to be clipped who's as dynamic a player as Nat Sciver-Brunt. Wish her well, and hopefully we'll be able to have a chat to her now that she's taken over as captain. Jeff, let's go to Chittagong, Least in these
Shadowgram.
Where Bangladesh levelled the series against Zimbabwe, their 2-test match with a thrashing of Zim. We went into the start of this with Norcross last week where Zimbabwe were all out for 227, but then Bangladesh went on to make 444. Shabman Islam 120. His second test match, Tom, the opener. Then my guy, Mehedi Hassan, 104 to really push themselves ahead in the game. Then they roll Zimbabwe for 111, and Mehedi takes 5 for 32. So they win the tests by an innings and 106. Jeff, Mehedi has now played 53 test matches. Mm-hmm. That's his second 100, averaging 24 with the bat. He's taken 205 test wickets at 32 with 13 fifers. Now, that's not Imran Khan numbers, but, from modern all-rounders, that's a very nice return and offering something genuine with the bat down at number 8.
I mean, I imagine that you were just sitting there watching this entire test match with a beaming smile upon your face. Mehedi Hassan, Jason Mraz, the way that he's become he's like the central point. I don't even know what a linchpin is. It's the thing on which something turns, but I don't know what turns on it. But he's that for this Bangladesh team. Like there's such stability and reliability in what he brings, especially in home conditions with the ball. It seems like his bowling figures should be better than that. Maybe it's not going so well on tour, but it seems like every time there's a Bangladesh test at home, he's taking 10 in the match. It's still like a good average return, isn't it? 53 test matches, 200. It suggests, better than 2 wickets per bowling innings because, of course, they wouldn't have always bowled twice, which is, if you're going at better than 2 wickets an innings, going for runs as well. But yeah. So Bangladesh beat Zimbabwe there. We'll come back to Zimbabwe, but there is a link towards between Bangladesh now and what's been happening with India and Pakistan in the last couple of weeks. I know it's been a pretty heavy political show so far, but this requires comment. So, and look, Daniel and I talked about what happened in Kashmir last week. I don't propose backing over that, but just to acknowledge there's a few developments since. Sunil Gavaskar wants Pakistan kicked out of the Asia Cup, or he thinks that the Asian Cricket Council will disband. So that's fairly hefty. The Asia Cup's coming up, so that's the hot button issue at the moment. Meanwhile, Pakistan have banned streaming of the IPL. Indian media stopped coverage of the PSL. And where does Bangladesh fit into all of this? Well, a retired major general in Bangladesh said if India attacks Pakistan, then Bangladesh should occupy states in India, which is quite punchy language up in the northeast, which is being seen as a sign that Bangladesh are aligning themselves with Pakistan. And that means that the series between India and Bangladesh, scheduled for August, is now under threat as well, according to reports out of India. So there's heaps and heaps to fall out of this, and I don't want to simplify it, and I don't want to get into the space where you and I are providing hot takes on Indian, Pakistani politics. That would be totally inappropriate at the moment, especially. But it's just to acknowledge that this is significant, and the decisions that are being made at the moment could have a lasting effect on cricket in that region. The decisions being made at the moment, it's the risk of making decisions when things are hugely emotive. You've had a horrible terrorist attack. You've had innocent people targeted. Like, of course, people are going to be angry, be upset, and be looking for some sort of consequences to be visited somewhere or other. So that is going to make the Pakistan-India relationship that we've been talking about for years has been so difficult already. It probably does reach a crisis point, given that there is this tournament coming up. I think the Bangladesh story is a non-event. I think that's some joker on the internet saying some stuff, and there's nothing formal that would give any rise to suspicion that they're going to cancel a Bangladesh tour. But things have been politically a bit difficult between India and Bangladesh since the revolt in Bangladesh and the outgoing prime minister fleeing to India and being given refuge in India when people wanted consequences to be faced in Bangladesh. So it's not like relations have always been easy, but I find it hard to imagine that they're going to be cancelling tours with another neighbour rather than the one that they've got the most difficult relationship.
I suppose I just raise that because if it's being reported in media outlets, it's just again,
a lot of stuff gets reported in media outlets. That's complete bullshit.
I appreciate that, but it would be naive to think that this is just going to be tidied up in 2 or 3 weeks. Like, this has got longer term implications, I suppose, is the point I'm trying to make. It's not just a a little skirmish between India and Pakistan, which is going to blow over in a couple of weeks. The language is far more escalated than that, and the way that the response has played out in the last couple of weeks since. So we'll keep a watching brief on it, but we won't have an awful lot more to say than what's being reported, I suppose. Jeff, while in India, you've been looking at the tendering arrangements with BCCI, which I thought was worth dropping in here.
This is just an observation in passing, but the BCCI was asking for pitches to do video editing for them, which wasn't really clear that this was that they wanted a large company pitch. Like, you could have read this as they were hiring individual editors. But I've never seen this before. They were charging people not to apply, but to get the document that had the information that told you whether you could apply. So they're charging 1 lakh rupee, 10,000 rupees, which is about 120 USD, if you're an Indian or an Indian company that wants to get this document, or about $1,200 USD if you're a foreign person or foreign company. And then the document that you get, as far as I was able to figure out, tells you that you need to be a reasonably sized company, you need at least 10 employees, you need this many years in the industry, blah, blah, blah. Right. So there could be people going, oh, well, I'm going to see if I can get a job with the BCCI. I've never seen an employer charge people to apply for the job before. Like, you've got to pay us money to... And like I said, that wasn't paying you money. I could kind of understand if you're the BCCI, you go, well, we're going to get 10,000 applications for this, so we're going to put a fee on it to reduce that so that we only get credible people. That might make more sense if it was to send the application. But this is literally for us to email you a PDF that tells you that you're not eligible to apply. You need to give us $1,200. Like, right. It's absurd. It's a literal scam.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Anywhere there's an opportunity to make a buck, I suppose.
They do need money. We're famously short of money.
I promised I'd come back around to Zimbabwe, and I'll do so now. They've named their squad for the test match against England. Jeff, you know what? I'll segue here. That's the same weekend as our Lord's Taverners run in Edinburgh. Okay. You'll be there. I'll be there. I've got something to show you from that, actually, Jeff. How cute is this? I'm going to open it on air. This is the bit of kit the Taverners have sent little Peggy. They've sent her a little Lord's Taverners hoodie for the weekend.
Baby hoodie.
Which might be the cutest thing I've ever seen. Of course, she'll destroy it and rip it off her body and start selling it when she's there. She's an absolute rascal, Peggy, which we love her for. But yes, that's coming up. We said we're not going to rinse you yet. We're nearly at the point where we're going to rinse you. We are raising 30,000 quid for a charity we're extremely proud of. We would love if you just hit that link in the show notes and contributed to, I think we're at 47, which might now become 49 runners from Little Things, Big Things Grow. If you chip in 20 or 50 pounds or 100 pounds, even if you feel generous, that would make a big difference in making sure that it doesn't end up being, a bit of a desperate scramble for a lot of people in the Final Word community who are stepping out, including Jeff, to run around Arthur's Seat. It's going to be such a great Final Word weekend, but it's not even about us.
I've been doing my running as well. I've been
tell me
into it. I'm just doing 5s at the moment, but I'm trying to do one every other day, just to try to get the muscle memory back and remind get over how awful it is, because it is. Everything's a hill in Lisbon. Like, everything's a hill. You cannot move in any direction without going either up a hill or down a hill that then means you'll have to go up a hill. So it's not a fun place to run around, but I'm doing it because you got to do it.
You got to do the work, and everyone's doing the work. So, recognize that if you can by chipping in. It'll be all over social media, but if you click the link in the show notes and chip in, that'd be really, really nice. I'll be running around, Jeff, in my T20 Vision sunglasses. I'm just going to show you this down the screen. The T20 Vision sunglasses, which are brilliant. I'm bowling in them at every opportunity. They're partnering with ODB, the team that I'm involved with on a Sunday. And as you can see on the shirt here, there's the Glenn Maxwell face with the glasses underneath the logo.
They've done a good job at printing the multicolored reflections on the glasses.
Aren't they great?
That's a quality print job.
You'll need to see the YouTube to see me awkwardly holding this up to get it in the frame.
Okay.
It looks like I'm sort of...
Anyway,
it doesn't matter.
You look like Peggy trying to take the jumper off.
Yeah, that's exactly it. But yeah, the T20 Vision. There's still the discount for those as well. I'll be definitely, and as will you, Jeff, believe me, you'll be running, if it's bright on that morning, you'll be running in the T20 Vision sunglasses. 10% off. Anyway, so that's on the same weekend, the run, as the Zim test against England. So you and I won't be there other than maybe day one. I don't know. We haven't spoken about this yet. I think one of us might go day one and we'll work the rest out as we go. We'll have daily shows from it.
I'm coming straight into Edinburgh, so that's unlikely.
Okay. we'll find a way. We'll find a way to be represented. If no one else is there, Daniel Norcross will be there. I can assure you of that.
Thank God.
Sikandar Raza will be there. Mm-hmm. Sikandar Raza is back in the test squad. Final
Get
week,
him to
friend.
do the Daily Show. Norcross and Sikandar Raza will do the Daily Show.
I don't imagine he's making much from the Zimbabwean Cricket Union to play. Maybe we give him a freelance rate to record the. I'm going to definitely send him a WhatsApp and ask him if he wants to do the Daily Show each day. He might.
Let's do it.
He might. Yeah. He's a terrific fella. He was a great guest.
Like I'm saying, he's been on the show. He's been. You're allowed to do it if you've been on the show.
All right. Well, I'll ask him whether he and Norcross can do the end of play because he'd be good. He's very, very good talker. With that sort of that Scottish lilt he's got in his accent as well, which is a nice part of the Sikandar Raza story. Anyway, they've left out their leggy Vincent Mastekeza, who took a fifer at Chittagong, but they don't think they need him in England, which is, you can form your own judgment there. They've got a heavy seam attack. This is their first test match since 2003 in England and their first international full stop in this country in bilateral sense since 2004. So the other bit that I didn't realise, Jeff, clever bit of scheduling from South Africa. Now, I heard they were shopping for a test match against Ireland in this window before the World Test Championship final. That's not been successful. However, they are getting a 4-day game against Zimbabwe after the test match at Arundel as prep for the World Test Championship.
After the test match.
There's not been a 4-day game at Arundel for a while. I think Zimbabwe played an MCC team there a couple of years ago, but it's been, it's not used that often, that ground, beautiful ground where we're very lucky to play out once a year with the Taverners. But the South African team will get a warm-up against Zimbabwe, so they're here for more than just the test match. They get to play a game against their neighbours, South Africa, as well. So Craig Irvine's captaining the squad. Plenty of familiar names in there throughout. And yes, looking forward to watching blessing Muzarabani bowl, who we said the other week. His record's exceptional, but bowling in England, that should be a real delight.
100%. I mean, would Arundel not be allowed to host a test because of restrictions about the ground? There's got to be certain qualifications the ground has to meet to host a test. But
no, they'd be allowed to. It's a good question. I wonder whether they talked about, it's probably in order to give the South African squad all a chance to play a practice match. That would be my guess.
Yeah. Okay. They'll do a 16-player thing. They should just play a test match. Come on.
Yeah.
Play a test match. Zimbabwe should be playing one before. Really, South Africa should be playing Zimbabwe in a test before Zimbabwe play England to give them a warm-up in England, and then South Africa can stay. That's not going to work.
Well, there are enough South Africans. Well, there are enough South Africans out here to make that work who are playing in the championship. That they could,
you could make a decent South African test side out of the county Champo. Totally. And there's a bit of an England squad coming out of the county Champo as well. So Sam Cook is in the squad. Doesn't mean he's going to play. So Atkinson's there, of course he is. Matty Potts, as per Crick Buzz, is there. And Josh Tongue, the Tongue is back in the squad. They've got those 4. Do they play the 4 or do they play, ding, 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 Shoaib Bashir is in the squad, having taken 2 wickets at 152 in the county championship to the point that the squad was announced. He's in there. At what stage are you embarrassed to get picked based on how badly you've been going in the domestic competition, I wonder? Anyway, how do you think all that's going to shake out? 4 quicks plus the spinner who's going like a busted ass.
Well, let's just deal with Bashir first. I think there is a point where they might run the risk of doing damage to him. Like, he's desperately out of sorts. I watched him bowl the other week. He's going at 4s, and not just like, he's going at 4.5 and over in every innings he bowls in practically at the moment. He can't control teams, and teams are sensing that and they're going after him. And you throw in there the fact that he's not taking wickets. It's not a great combination. So, it stood out that Jack Leach, and again, we'll come to this in our county wrap, bowled superbly on a green top the day after this squad was announced. And, Leach, who remains at the peak of his powers as a left-arm orthodox spinner. It is complicated. I think it might lend them towards playing 4 quicks. So you're right, Atkinson, Potts, that's fine. Tongue, it barely played since that Lord's Test that you and I covered against Australia a couple of years ago.
He was good.
But what an impression he's making. You watch him on the streams. He's quick, he's accurate, he's swinging it, he's rehabilitated. There's a reason why they are super excited about Tongue being back in England colours. So he will play. So is there room to get Cook in? I suspect he will turn out. They rested him a couple of weeks ago. There's a procedural fairness thing here as well with Cook, isn't there? That they feel like he's earned the chance to play a test match. So how that all comes together, I'm not quite clear. Chris Wokes will be back for the India series. he has got a great record at home, an excellent record against India. They're just not rushing him. So they're providing space in this test match for maybe all four of them to play, and then they'll have to squeeze
show
into
us
fewer
what you
spots
can
against
do.
India. Yeah, there's a little bit of that going on here. So if Wokes was ready to go, I suspect Wokes would have played, but they're not going to take risks with him at age 35 or whatever it is now with that ankle. So he'll be back when...
They've got to keep him for Perth. Got to have him fresh to take the new ball in Perth and unleash the rage.
I'd be surprised if he were in Australia, but I would be shocked if he wasn't playing against India at home when that series begins towards the end of June in Leeds. But yeah, that's the Bashir story. And the other thing with Bashir is it's worth remembering that he did take the second most test wickets in the world in 2024, yet played a shitload of test matches, but I think he's 48 or 49 test wickets. So it's not like he can't be a contributor on the international stage. It's more that his returns have been diminishing for a long time, going back to the end of last summer, and of course in New Zealand where he struggled, and now the start of the county championship season. And indeed when he played in Australia in the A Tour, which went under the radar a little bit, but he went for runs there too. So he gets the nod as the one spinner. Crawley gets the spot that was never really in doubt. There was a bit of a push for Ben McKinney, I suppose. McKinney momentum to debut here and Crawley to be replaced, but they were never really going to do that. They're going to dance with the one that brung them on Crawley. He'll play the whole way through this summer and against Australia as well. He's kept the wolf from the door.
What if he doesn't make a run? If he doesn't make a run this summer, can they credibly keep him on for the Ashes?
I just don't think they see it the way that most would in this situation. They're pretty open, right? They think that out of 10 innings in an Ashes series, he'll play one match-winning innings. And look, in the last Ashes contest, he actually didn't do that. He played four or five.
He played that innings in Manchester.
It rained off.
It rained.
Yeah.
But it was a match-winning innings that wasn't able to win the match, but that wasn't his fault.
And plenty more. He led the runs for the series, right? So against Australia, he was excellent a couple of years ago. So if you want to frame it that way, but it does mean that I'd say it's improbable that Cox makes his debut. Now, so Cox has been picked for the Jordan Cox, this is from Now Essex, 3 times in the squad. He was injured before going out to play against New Zealand earlier. Well, I guess it was over the winter. And it's happened again, Jeff. He's being scanned today. He was on 99. He moved to 99 with a boundary. A quick single to move to 99. And then he reached for his left side, and then he hit a boundary to move to 103. This was against Somerset, facing Jack Leach, coincidentally. And then went straight off the ground, retired hurt. Yeah. So after a broken finger cost him a debut in December, let's hope that this guy's luck isn't bad again. He's I'm not saying he's a guaranteed starter with Crawley, Duckett, Pope, Root, Brook, Stokes, Smith. I mean, he's probably spare that, but you wouldn't want to see injury deny him another chance to be in that England squad when he's so close to getting that blue cap.
No, he's had a degree of a curse that's been hanging over him. And there's the last interesting bit with Tim Southey coming in as the bowling coach, not James Anderson. So it's basically the 2015 New Zealand Test Series in England, that fun, exciting one. They've formalised their takeover now. Jeetan Patel's in there handling the spin. Southey's in there handling the fast bowling, and hopefully how to bomb sixes. I just want to see all of England's bottom 4 just trying to hit sixes, and Brendan McCullum, obviously. So, yeah, the Kiwi regime is in.
All right, Jeff, we'll be into our domestic county wrap, both men and women, after the break. Before it, Odin Mortgage and Tax, who are there for expats. They're for the people who are queuing up with me at Australia House to vote on Friday, which is always a lovely thing to do. How's this? I got into the voting booth, well, not even the booth, the bit where you got to fill out your absentee form, and it asked for a form of identification to be just listed on the page, which I didn't realise, and I didn't have my passport number available to me. I'm like, what am I going to do here? And thankfully, my teammate, Patrick Hargraves, Strappy, was in there with me. So I was able to get him to verify my. Oh,
he could do the, I know that this is a real Australian person.
Yeah, I know you are real.
Nice.
So it's nice. And they said to me when doing it.
It was quite soothing. I did it in Lisbon, and it was something, it was quite comforting to walk into a room and see all the AEC colours and signage and flags and branding and the vests. And I was like, home. Nice little bit of home.
Well, we should have handed out, instead of how to vote cards, we should have handed out brochures to Odin Mortgage and Tax while we were there, because everyone in that queue and everyone at Australia House, well, I say everyone, maybe there might be some people who have got no intention of moving back to Australia, but many of them will have an interest in what's going on with their finances in Australia, right? Be it tax or mortgage. And this is the organisation there for you. They've helped 2,000 people across 40 different countries getting their shit together when it comes to like whether they've got a mortgage already back home or whether they have an interest in getting a mortgage one day. Tax is the other major part of what they do. For $300, they review your tax arrangements, which is pretty important as well because, good luck sorting that out when you've got to try and work out where you're filing tax returns and that type of thing. And
you might be paying twice.
Investments and so on. So they are there for you, Odin Mortgage and Tax. Our landing page is in the show notes. So go and click through to that. Learn how they might be able to help you with your financial arrangements in Australia if you are living somewhere else, if you are voting in Lisbon or London or somewhere else, or if you're, just someone like Jeff or I who have lived overseas for a long time.
Right. Break, county wrap, IPL, done.